Hey BookTube, here is my 2017 end-of-year bookish survey. I'm Jen and I talk about audiobooks, and I love this end-of-year bookish survey. It was created by Jamie at the Perpetual Page Turner. Jamie's a blogger and she created this wonderful list of questions, and I love it so much because it's so focused in on certain things, and I don't have to come up with some random number of books that were the best books of 2017. I have such trouble with that, so this is way better. Okay, I read 258 books in total. 191 of those were audio, that's 74%. 44 of those were ebooks, that's 17%. 6 were print books, that's 2%. And the rest, 7%, the other 17 were DNFs. 147 of those were romance books, that's 57%. So, you know, I tend to think that I read a whole lot more romance than anything else, and I do, but not by much. Okay, here is my favorite part. I listened to 107,760 minutes, or 1,885 hours and 31 minutes, or 78 days, 13 hours and 31 minutes, or 11 weeks, 1 day, 13 hours and 31 minutes, or 2 months, 3 weeks, 1 day, 13 hours and 31 minutes. That is 21% of my entire life in 2017. 21% of all the hours of my life I spent listening to a book. I love that because I get so much else done too. So in addition to all of the other stuff I did in my life, I was listening to books 21% of the time. What to Say Next by Julie Buxbaum. This is narrated on audio by Kirby, Heyborne, and Abigail Revasch. And it is YA contemporary, and it deals with autism and a boy on the autism spectrum and a girl who is overcoming the death of her father. Without Merit by Colleen Hoover. I'm surprised I didn't like this any better than I did because I love Colleen Hoover, but maybe I don't love Colleen Hoover as much as I thought I did. This was narrated on audio by Candace Thaxton and just, you know, didn't do it for me. Chasing Swells by A.L. Goulden. This is narrated on audio by Matt Haynes. This was such a shock to me in a very good way. It's such a surprise. This author contacted me on Goodreads and asked me if I would review her audiobook, and I said sure. When that's happened in the past, it hasn't happened very often, but once in a while an author will ask me to do that, and it ends up that the narrator is just so bad. What a shock! It was really good. It's all about a surfer and a woman who is sent, she's a journalist, and she's sent to do a story on him. So it's their romance. But this guy, Matt Haynes, I was so surprised. I got to the end of it and I emailed this author and I said, I can't believe this. I cannot believe this, but it's really good. So very, very surprising in a very good way. Exit West by Mohsin Hamid. This is narrated by the author and it is literary fiction. I thought this was going to be really good and I was so surprised that it just wasn't. It was depressing. It was largely about two people who get married and they are refugees, kind of on the run in a war situation, trying to get to a place of safety, and their marriage essentially just falls apart. It was unlikable characters, it was a depressing situation all the way around, and I got to the end and I thought, this guy is a good writer, but it just couldn't carry the story, so that really surprised me. I thought it's going to be amazing, and oh no, it was pretty much the furthest thing from amazing. What I Didn't Say by Keary Taylor. This book is wonderful. It is narrated on audio by Matthew Dunehoo, but I didn't much care for the audio. I listened to it several years ago, like probably 4 years ago. And so when I reread it this past year, I just read it in print. And I really did push a couple of my friends to read it. I thought it was wonderful. It's the story of a boy in high school, and he's in a car accident and he loses his vocal cords, so he can no longer speak. So there's a girl in his high school who knows sign language, and so he has to have like a study period with her, and she works with him. And he's not really big on sign language when he can text or write. So it's just the story of their relationship. And, you know, there's so much more to it than that. It was so good. One of the things I like the best about this book is that this guy has a family that is amazing. His mom and dad are so involved. They have a lot of kids, and they are just, I mean, they're the family that everybody wants to be a part of. So, yeah, you should read this book. Timestorm by Julie Cross. This is book 3 in the Tempest series, and it's all about time travel. The 3 books are Tempest, Vortex, and Timestorm, and this one never came out on audio. The first 2 books were out on audio, and I read them a long time ago, but this one never came out. And it was one of those things where I thought, oh, I'm going to read the print book. I'm going to get to it. I'm going to get to it, and I just never did. And so I ended up just randomly looking up one day, and it had come out like 2 months prior. I was so shocked. So I thought, oh my gosh, I got to listen to that. So I reread the first 2 books, and then I listened to this one. They're narrated on audio by Matthew Brown, and this is told in first person. There is a guy who can time travel, and Matthew Brown just captured him perfectly, just perfectly. He had, you know, I felt like I was listening to the guy in the story. I forget his name, Jackson. I thought, I knew Jackson. If I were to meet Jackson on the street, he would sound like Matthew Brown. I love that. He just got it all right. But the ending was very creative, very inventive. I didn't see it coming. I was surprised, and I really liked it. Of the endings that I read this year, which weren't very many, this was just a really good one. Peripetia by Lyons Fleming. This is narrated on audio by Therese Plummer and Luke Daniels, and it is book 2 in her The City series. Book 1 is called Mordacious, and the narration was really, really good. Luke Daniels, I'm not sure about. He's like Julia Whelan for me. I go hot and cold on him, but you know, for this book, he was great, and Therese Plummer's always wonderful. She's just always wonderful. The words that are the titles of the books are based on a word of the day calendar that the 2 main characters find, and then they read it every day, and the first one to use it in a sentence, the word, wins. You know, it's like, ha, I beat you. So this is a world where zombies have taken over. Actually, the series is a follow-up series to her Until the End of the World series. And it follows the brother of the main character in the other series. And so it's just really good. This sequel, or the second book in the series, I think there's going to be a third, is much more into what's happening. And these people are trapped in New York City, and, you know, there are zombies everywhere. There are gangs, and it's just really well done. I really enjoyed it. Strange the Dreamer by Laini Taylor. This is narrated on audio by Steve West. Oh my gosh, Steve West is amazing. He's just amazing. And this book, Laini Taylor can write. And I just love this. It is the beginning of a new series, and it's YA fantasy. And Steve West is amazing. He's just amazing. He completely captures Laszlo Strange, who is the main character. This is the story of a guy who is kind of obsessed with a mythical city. People have heard that it exists, and they're not quite sure that maybe it does. He works in a library, and one day a military regiment comes through, and it's the story of what happens after that. It's really good. Ends on a really, really kind of, not a cliffhanger, but a, oh my gosh, what's going to happen next kind of, you know, note. So yeah, wonderful book. Emily Henry. Emily Henry is a fairly new author, and she actually is local to me. She lives in Cincinnati, Ohio, which is not far down the road. It's about an hour that way. And she's so talented. She wrote The Love That Split the World. I think that may have been her debut novel. And she also wrote A Million Junes, which was probably, it's probably a tie for my favorite book of the year. So I'll talk about that later, but she is just amazing. I think I want every book that she writes because she's just really good. And of course, I couldn't talk about my favorite new author without talking about my favorite narrators, and those would be Steve West and Christina Panfilio. Steve West has really just come to the forefront in my mind of narrators that are way up there. He's British, he's so good at everything he does. I never feel like I've heard him before, you know, when he does a character. I always am wrapped up in the story, and he's just amazing. And then Christina Panfilio was new to me, but I listened to a series of romance books, and boy, was she amazing. I thought I would never have enjoyed these books nearly as much if they hadn't been done by her. So yeah, she is really good. Reality is Not What It Seems by Carlo Rovelli, and that has been translated from the Italian by Simon Carnell, and it is narrated on audio by Roy McMillan. Well, first off, Roy McMillan was so good. He just, you know, made me so interested. I couldn't wait to hear the next thing. And the thing about this book, it's nonfiction. Carlo Rovelli is a physicist. And he deals with quantum physics and quantum mechanics. And so he starts with this book at the very beginning of like prehistoric science observations, and he continues the whole thing up to the current day and the things that they are discovering even now. Amazing stuff. I love that kind of stuff. I don't always understand it. I understand it when it's being told to me at the time, but I can't spit it back to you. But it fascinates me. So, oh, that was wonderful. And way out of my comfort zone in that I don't read nonfiction, but that one was good. Gray, the series by Lou Cadle, and this is narrated by Lauren Fortgang. This is a post-apocalyptic series that was originally published as episodes, and then they condensed those into a book and then re-released them. This is so good. There's a volcano that explodes. I'm not sure if it's Yellowstone or another one, I don't know, but ash gets into the air and it turns everything gray. That's why the title is Gray. There is a college student, I think she's a graduate student, and she is on her summer break and decides to go just drive around the West and go hiking and just kind of spend some time by herself, kind of evaluating her life and where she is and what direction she wants to go. And so she goes into a cave to check something out, and this thing happens. So over the course of the series, it's just so good because it's about how the world would change in a post-apocalyptic situation. So I love that kind of stuff, and I loved this book. It was hard to put down. A Million Junes by Emily Henry. This is narrated on audio by Julia Whelan. And again, I always go hot and cold on Julia Whelan, but this was amazing. I think the story just overshadowed any amount of narration that I didn't like, you know. Probably in a tie with What to Say Next for my favorite book of the year. It's YA contemporary, but it is magical realism, and it kind of has a bit of a Romeo and Juliet story going on, but it kind of goes on a journey of these two high school kids trying to figure out why their families have always said don't have anything to do with that family, and what they find is just so amazing. So really an amazing book. Yeah, I am definitely going to listen to this one again this year. Carve the Mark by Veronica Roth. I think this cover is stunning. It's just stunning. Oh, so pretty. There were a lot of really pretty covers, but this one really stood out to me because, well, look at it. It's gorgeous. That would be David from What to Say Next by Julie Buxbaum. He's such a delight. He is a guy who is on the autism spectrum, and he sees the world as very black and white, very logically. And so a lot of things don't make sense to him, and he kind of has to go, I don't get it. But he has a notebook where he kind of writes down notes so he'll know what to do in social situations. And he was such a wonderful character, really wonderful character. So definitely memorable. A Million Junes. Emily Henry just outdid herself with this book. It's just so beautifully written. The Unwind series by Neil Shusterman. I gotta tell you, this ought to be required reading in high schools because it is so good. It is narrated on audio by Luke Daniels, and it is so thought-provoking. It has to do with a civil war that's been fought over the abortion issue and how, as part of the treaty between the two sides, you can have your child unwound from age 13 to 18, which essentially means that you send them off and they are dismembered. And the thing that is amazing about this series is the way that such horrible things are framed out slowly in a society, and they are accepted by people everywhere because they think, you know, it's not we're sending your child off or you're sending your child off to be dismembered. What they are led to think is this means your child is going to live on and help so many people, and your child is being dismembered. There's nothing wrong with your child. So, yeah, so thought-provoking, so moving. The Chronicles of St. Mary's by Jodi Taylor. These are narrated expertly on audio by Zara Ram, and they're so much fun. It is a series of 8 books, so these have been out for a while, and I can't believe I took this long to read them. They're all about time travel. They center around a woman who is part of an institute in the UK. Their mission is to go back and observe history so that they get the straight story. And something always happens. And so the wit is so good because it's a very dry British wit, and I love that. And the great thing is it's not just historians. It's historians and security detail and people that are like soil experts and map experts and you know, all kind weapons experts and IT people. I mean, there's always a crew that go to observe, and of course they always get in trouble. So these are so good. It's about 8 books and several novellas, and I've gotten up to almost to the most recently released book, and I want to wait to read it until the next one in the series, which I think is going to be the last one, comes out, because I hear that the one I haven't read yet ends on a cliffhanger, and I don't want to wait.
There's a famous expression that if you've met one person with autism, then you've met one person with autism. So you met me. Just me. Not a diagnosis.
When you've been as lost as I have, he once said, you get good at finding your way home, Junebug.
Thresholds are more than randomly chosen divisions between rooms. They're places where change, transformation happens. Maybe for some people, falling in love is an explosion, fireworks against a black sky and tremors rumbling through the earth, one blazing moment. For me, it's been happening for months, as quietly as a seed sprouting. Love sneaked through me, spreading roots around my heart until, in the blink of an eye, the green of it broke the dirt. Hidden one moment, there the next.
The Shortest was actually one of those Chronicles of St. Mary's novellas. It was When a Child is Born, again by Jodi Taylor, narrated by Zara Ram, and that is book 2.5 in the series, and it was 32 minutes long. The longest was A Court of Wings and Ruin by Sarah J. Maas. This is the third book in the Court of Thorns and Roses series, and it is narrated by Amanda Lee Cobb, and it was 25 hours and 9 minutes long. This isn't necessarily a shocking book, but I was shocked to get it. I won it in a Goodreads giveaway. So it is The Becoming of Noah Shaw by Michelle Hodkin, and it is the follow-up series to the Mara Dyer series by Michelle Hodkin. And, you know, I got it in the mail and I was so surprised. And then they turned around and sent me the box set of the Mara Dyer series. So I was really shocked. Esther and Jonah, from a semi-definitive list of worst nightmares by Crystal Sutherland, and that's narrated on audio by Tara Sands. Oh, these two. You know, Esther is making this list of her worst nightmares, the things she is most afraid of, and Jonah helps her face her fears. And the book has a whole lot more going on in it, but those two, that relationship is, it was my favorite this year. Dax Bishop and Ruby Kokinos from Suddenly Engaged, which is book 3 in the Lake Haven series. And that's that's by Julia London, and it is narrated by Christina Panfilio. And this is a man living next door to a woman with a young daughter, and the daughter is about 7, and her name is Ruby. And the guy is Dax. He's kind of a grump, and there are a lot of reasons why, but you know, she'll come over to his house and just annoy him to no end. She is quite a character, but she was a delight, and that relationship between those two was just really wonderful. There were two, because I have two best friends. The first is The Air He Breathes by Brittany C. Cherry. That is my friend Lisa's, one of her favorite authors. And so this is from the Elements series. It's narrated on audio by Brian Polino and Aaron Mallon. And so she really wants me to read the rest of that series. And I actually want to. That's adult romance, and it was really well done. Brittany C. Cherry is self-published. So if you haven't heard of her, that's probably why. The other one was The Royals by Aaron Watt. That series is narrated by Angela Goethals for the most part, but in a couple of books, there is another perspective added in, and Zach Weber does that one. So yeah, drama. It's a total soap opera and kind of fun. The covers are really pretty. But yeah, Michaela said, you got to read this. You just got to, and I did. Nixia by Scott Reinken. This is narrated by Sullivan Jones and Dominic Hoffman. Whoa. The narration was so good on this one. I was stunned. I was stunned at the way that these two narrators were able to capture the characters. Whoa. I was so impressed. And the book is really good. It's YA sci-fi. Great debut. I would have to say Strange the Dreamer by Laini Taylor, again, narrated by Steve West. The world was just so beautiful, and it was so interesting the way it worked. And just, I loved being in that world. I didn't want to really leave that world. The Matchmaker's Playbook by Rachel Van Dyken. This is narrated by Jeremy York on audio, and oh my gosh, I laughed and laughed and laughed. This is about a guy who was going to be an NFL player, and he tried to save a kid and from getting hit by a car, and he got injured in the process and wrecked his knee, and now he can't play. So he goes back to college because, well, why not? And so he then starts a dating service, and it's just so good. So good. I laughed my head off. That Boy by Gillian Dodd, and that is narrated by Lisa Cordeleone. And, you know, it's a great book. It's kind of a funny book about a girl who is friends with two boys. And initially, when they're very young, they think, oh, you're just a dumb girl. And she socks one of them. I think she socks him in the stomach. And he's like, okay, well, you can be one of the boys. So she's not a girly girl, but midway through the book, there is a tragedy that happens, and the way that it played out just made me cry. I don't cry very often with books, but boy, it just made me cry. I Remember You by Kathleen Davitt Bell. This is narrated on audio by Emily Rankin. I got this at Book Outlet thinking, it looks kind of good. We'll see. Wow. It really just knocked me down. I wish more people knew about this book. It's YA contemporary, and it takes place in a high school. There's a girl, and she meets a boy, and she's never met him before, but he has memories of her. All kinds of memories of things they've done, and so you have to get to the bottom of the puzzle, of course, and it's so good. It's just, the ending will just blow you away. Our Souls at Night by Kent Haruf. This is narrated on audio by Mark Bramhall. And Mark Bramhall was good, but he has a specific style, and it suited this book very well. I got to the end of this book, and I burst out in tears. And I thought, what in the heck? It's because it was so realistic, and it's set in the Midwest, and so I got the people. You know, they're my people. I understood them. I understood the mindset. I understood all the problems. Wow. It really did just crushed my soul. There is a movie with Robert Redford and Jane Fonda. Skip it. It's not true to the book, and no, it's badly cast. Nah. The book, though, so good. This was hard because I don't know that I read a whole lot of unique books, but the one I could come up with was Ringer by Lauren Oliver. This is narrated on audio by Sarah Drew and Aaron Spencer, and it is the sequel to Replica. That's a duology. And the book is written so that you read from two perspectives. You read one girl's perspective on one side of the book, and you go to the middle, and then you flip it over and you read the other girl's perspective. And you can listen to it like alternating points of view, or you can listen to it all one point of view and then all the other point of view. And so that was kind of unique, especially when it comes to audiobooks, because I've never seen that done on audio. This book didn't make me mad, but the controversy around it did, and that was Carve the Mark by Veronica Roth. This is narrated on audio from two points of view by Austin Butler and Emily Rankin. And the thing about it was that it was hyped. It was really, really hyped. And so when it came out, a lot of people were paid to review it, and a lot of people were asked to review it. And so the reviews on Goodreads were kind of mid-range. I mean, I really liked it. I gave it 4 stars, but there were a lot of people that gave it 3, and they said it's got good things and bad things. And so, you know, I think people's expectations weren't met completely with all the hype going on. But, you know, they still thought it was a good book. Okay, then there was a blog post written by someone who criticized some things and drew some parallels in the book to real life, and there were a lot of those same booktubers who had been paid or had been given a copy of the book so that they would review it, and they gave honest opinions, but then they came in and amended their opinions simply because they wanted to be politically correct, and that just made me so angry. My respect for these booktubers, and they are big-time booktubers, went way down. It completely lost my respect. Made me so angry. I was so sad that this book got disparaged the way it did simply because of one person's opinion. I looked, and I have 3 books that I really want to read this year, and they're kind of high up on my list, and those are A Man Called Uva by Frederick Bachman and The Anatomical Shape of a Heart by Jen Bennett, and Artemis by Andy Weir. A couple of these are on audio. This one is not. And so I've got literary fiction, adult sci-fi, and YA contemporary. I really like the look of Dark of the West by Joanna Hathaway. That premise just looks really good. It's about two groups that are at war, and there's kind of a princess who's been raised in a palace and a boy who has not, and he is sent to spy on her. And so then he falls for her. And I'm just a sucker for that kind of a romance. You know, now is he going to betray her, and how's that going to play out? So it looks so good. It's YA. I cannot wait for the sequels to Carve the Mark and Strange the Dreamer. Carve the Mark is Veronica Roth, and Strange the Dreamer is Laini Taylor. I'm pretty sure Laini Taylor's book will be narrated by Steve West. I don't know about Carve the Mark. That's Austin Butler and Emily Rankin, so probably those two will narrate the sequel too. And that is the end of the 2017 Bookish survey. I had a lot of fun with this, and I would love to know your opinions on any of these questions. So let's talk about that in comments, and that's it for now from me. So let's have a good 2018. Yeah, even numbered years, they're always the good ones. So let's do that, and that's it for now from me. I will see you next time. Thanks for watching.